Welcome back, guys, to Ace Investigations 2, Prosecutors Gambit, where last episode we finished off our investigation of the Fountain Room, learning about Judy's come-up and her obtaining the ultimate cookbook that details how to make the poison used on Gusto, as well as the smashed teapot having contained ubiquitous, making us seem like the guilty party. So with that angle being explored, we now press testimony from Miss Bound about the Zodiac Hall. It took 18 years, but at long last, I was finally able to buy Samson's home back a little while ago.
Hold it!
18 years. You must have gone through a lot to buy it back, Miss Bound. This home, this place, such memories abound. I couldn't stand to lose what I had found. Samson, I did what I had to do. To see that home was waiting here for you. How did she make it look so easy? I'll say, but I wouldn't expect any less from a trained triple threat performer. If you could continue with your testimony, Miss Bound. Minus the singing, if you please. But a place like this is expensive to maintain, so I decided to turn it into an art gallery.
Hold it!
You managed the gallery by yourself, Miss Bound. Yes, well, we only opened today, so I haven't done much actual managing yet, but I have to keep the mansion going. Can't have it falling down around my ears. Samson could come home any day, after all. So she really got the house back for him. I'm so sorry, Judy. I wish you could have done more. Oh, you've done plenty, Mr. Fender. If anyone should have done more, it's me. Even if the only thing I can do right now is to keep this place safe for Samson. To that end, I collected as many Paul Helic pieces as I could from around the world.
Hold it!
Paul Helic, that was Mr. Frost's pseudonym, correct? Yes, he adopted it while he was working as a sculptor in France. I see. I'm curious about some of the pieces in your collection, more specifically, how you were able to acquire the Taurus and Gemini sculptures. It was my understanding that Mr. Frost died before he could complete them. Yes, I was able to create replicas of the Winter Wing based on photos of the sculptures he made. Really? Perhaps you could go into some more detail on that. Because if I'm honest, it's always been something of a dream of mine to open a space dedicated to his work.
Hold it!
Is that the more detail? I don't think it was. Tell me more about this dream of yours, Miss Bound. Well, what I really wanted was to open a gallery with Samson, of course. A gallery of dance, a gallery of song, a gallery of gaiety and candy all day long. That was the idea anyway. And here I thought art was to be appreciated in silence, not accompanied by musical numbers. Alas, Mr. Tangaroa transgressed against the edicts of the goddess of justice. And as such, that part of your dream may go permanently unfulfilled. No! Samson he's innocent! That awful prosecutor refused to listen, but it's true, he'd never hurt anybody. Mr. Tangaroa gave a false confession in order to protect Miss Bound. The two of them really did what they could to protect one another, didn't they? I was able to create replicas for the Winter Wing based on photos of the sculptures he made.
Hold it!
These photos you mentioned, you mean the ones you yourself took in Mr. Frost's room 18 years ago? Yes, you certainly know a lot about what happened back then, Mr. Edgeworth. So those statues in the Winter Wing were just copies? And I didn't even get to see them before they melted. No, the sculptures in question were definitely not replicas. Which means that Miss Bound is lying. I know. It's such an awful shame, and after we went to the trouble to recreate them too. The sculptures in the Winter Wing weren't replicas. They're the very ones from 18 years ago. I need to show her I'm aware of that, or I'll never get to the truth. It took 18 years, but at long last I was finally able to buy Samson's home back a little while ago, did you? So it's the last statement I'm going to here. And we need to prove they aren't not replicas. Okay. I mean, it's probably to do with this, maybe? Sugar composition matches that sugar found in the pale blue liquid in Artie Frost's room 18 years ago. Sugar detected in fountain water also seems to be a match. So we're saying that literally the sugar composition was exactly the same as 18 years ago, which would be very hard to be unless it was literally the statue from 18 years ago. Correct?
Objection!
Or an incredible coincidence. I'm afraid you've run out of road, Miss Bound. You can lie all you like, but you can't deny the results of the tests conducted on the sculpture's remains. And those tests leave no room for ambiguity. What you had on display weren't replicas. They were the very statues Mr. Frost carved 18 years ago. Oh, I could probably help explain how they worked it out if you like, dear. It's the sugar, you see. You might think sugar is sugar, but the composition is actually very unique. You could probably recreate the statues, but the sweet secret of their chemical makeup? No chance. Thank you, Miss Scone. I don't recall asking for help, but still. To put it simply, the statues didn't disappear back then because they'd melted. They disappeared because you spirited them away and kept them hidden for these 18 long years. Ah! What? She kept a pair of flavored ice sculptures around somewhere for all that time? It's not the most out there idea in the world, assuming you had a big enough ice box.
Overruled.
Quiet, all of you. Miss Bound, have you anything to say in your defense? So you've already learned that much. Should I take that to mean you admit to having hidden the flavored ice sculptures in question? No, I admit to no such thing. You haven't proven that I was the one who took those statues away. And you won't, because it would have been impossible for me to do so in the first place. The police were already here when they disappeared. How could I have done it without them noticing? How indeed. I don't yet know exactly how you did it, but I'm far from ready to say that it was impossible for you to have stolen them away. You're a very persistent man, aren't you, Mr. Edgeworth? I am indeed, and I won't stop until I get to the truth. I see. Then I'd better tell you exactly what I did that day 18 years ago. What I did that day? The whole time before judging began, I was waiting upstairs in our living area on standby. During the judging, I had to go change the camera's film cartridge for Samson. But before I could take the camera back to Samson, I discovered Mr. Frost's body. Later, around when your father arrived, I began to make the rounds and serve tea to everybody present. That was when I saw Mr. Gusto entering Mr. Frost's room. And those were my movements on the day it all happened. Began, I was about to say. I hardly see how you could take issue with any of that. That's for us to decide, Miss Bound. Are you saying there's a contradiction in her story, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm more focused on proving the fact that she did indeed steal those statues. The question is when she would have had the opportunity to do so. If I can pinpoint that, I might be able to prove what exactly she got up to. The whole time before judging began, I was waiting upstairs in our living area on standby.
Hold it!
And what were you doing while you were waiting? I was in my room practicing some dance routines. I was on a TV show called Bacon Bop with Samson, you see. Bacon Bop? What kind of show was it? It was a children's show. The two of them would sing and dance as they made a variety of sweets. Whoa, that sounds awesome! Hold the phone, Miles, you used to watch it? My father introduced me to it. I may have watched an episode or two. So Miss Bound passed the time before the judging began by practicing her dance routines. Was this the moment when Miss Bound stole the sculptures? Oh god, we're going with that kind of stuff, are we? Now I'm like, I need to know what I asked about. No, because the contestants would have been in the rooms? That can't have been the moment she did it. I'd better listen carefully to what she says. Also, we're looking for a time where she was present. Ah, okay. During the judging, I had to go change the camera's film cartridge for Samson.
Hold it!
Were you the only one who was able to move around freely during the judging? Well, I wouldn't say freely exactly, but I was able to move around more easily than the contestants, yes. Even so, I could hardly have spirited the sculptures away while Samson was standing right there, could I? And I ran straight off to change the film as soon as he asked me. I wouldn't have had time. So changing the film and the camera as requested by Mr. Tangaroa. Was this the moment when Miss Bound stole the sculptures? Well, I'm assuming the contestants are in their rooms. That can't have been the moment she did it. I better listen carefully to what she says. To be honest, this might be a comeback after pressing everything, to be fair. Before I could take the camera back to Samson, I discovered Mr. Frost's body.
Hold it!
It's because Tangaroa wasn't in the room. You entered the room containing Mr. Tangaroa's work before bringing the camera back to him, correct? Yes, I heard the sound of something collapsing. Samson, are you in here? Ah! The sound of the chocolate ship falling over after a certain someone took a bite out of one of the supports and then spirited herself away. And Mr. Tangaroa was still in Mr. Gusto's room when you found the body. Yes, I'm fairly sure that was the case. He was judging each room in order and he liked to take his time. So the point at which he discovered Mr. Frost's body. Was this the moment when Miss Bound stole the sculptures? I mean, this was the point where she was discovering the body and she screamed and then people noticed because of it, so probably not. That can't have been the moment she did it. I better listen carefully to what she says. Later around, when your father arrived, I began to make the rounds and serve tea to everybody present.
Hold it!
Just as you did today. Yes, I went around and offered everybody working on the investigation a cup of tea. Present company included, I remember it well. You were here, there, upstairs, downstairs, everywhere with that little cart of yours. Ah, okay. Now we've got something that can move something. Interesting. Did anything strike you as strange around that time? Oh yeah, Gregory was singing the praises of Judy's tea and I think he mentioned his saucer was cold. Oh, his saucer was cold. It's under the thing. Was this the moment when Miss Bound stole the sculpture? I think this is it, but I might want to check out the other one first. Oh, but then I always feel like saying this wasn't the moment is actually going to get me a negative. So it is underneath it, and she's carting it away. Miss Bound, I believe this was when you stole the sculptures. I hate to contradict you, but the fountain room was full of witnesses at that point, Mr. Fender included. Are you suggesting that I somehow got the sculptures out of Mr. Frost's room, right under everyone's noses? That is precisely what I'm suggesting. Miss Bound stole those ice sculptures, and she did it by hiding them here.
Take that!
In Fender. My father and Fender had no idea that one of the sculptures was mere inches away from them. Because it wasn't just a tea set you were pushing around, Miss Bound, but a hidden ice sculpture in a glass case. Ah!
Overruled!
Surely such a thing would have been impossible. How would a case of that size fit on a serving cart? It would have been spotted immediately.
Objection!
Who said anything about a serving cart? I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Edgeworth. What are you suggesting she used instead? That thing over there. It's right behind us. I'm suggesting that Miss Bound used this to transport the sculptures. Lift cart.
Take that!
And a tablecloth. And this is... the cart that Miss Bound used to move the flavored ice sculptures out of Mr. Frost's room 18 years ago. And it would appear that the very same cart is still here with us in this fountain room. We originally bought it for use in the contest. And you're saying that Miss Bound loaded Mr. Frost's sculptures onto this cart and carried them off? I am. As you can imagine, all one would need to do is lay a case on its side, add a tablecloth, and it'd look exactly like a normal serving cart, thus allowing her to move the sculptures around freely. Can it be? Holy moly, of course! That's why those saucers were so chilly! They were sitting on top of a big block of ice! Shoot! How could you? Impressive. Then again, you are Mr. Gregory Edgeworth's son. I should have expected no less. There isn't a scrap of evidence that I stole the sculptures all those years ago now. And yet, I knew that no matter what I said or did, I'd always be under a cloud of suspicion. So you admit it? You admit that you stole them from Mr. Frost's room? Yes, I do. I took those sculptures and their glass cases out of that room 18 years ago. As Mr. Edgeworth correctly deduced, I dressed up the lift cart as a serving cart to do it, and slipped in and out of Mr. Frost's room while I was going around serving tea to everybody. In the end, I'd removed not only the sculptures, but the flavoured ice Zodiac blocks as well. Zodiac blocks? I feel like I've seen them for myself before. There's a huge block of ice on display here. It must be incredibly heavy, though maybe not. What with it being hollow on the inside? If the Winter Wing really is an exact replica of Mr. Frost's room from 18 years ago, then even though my father never saw them because they'd already melted, the Zodiac blocks must have been in the victim's room back then as well. When I had finished moving the 2 ice sculptures and the 2 Zodiac blocks out, I took 2 fresh empty cases to Mr. Frost's room and put them where the original 2 had been. Only the sculptures had been kept in glass cases, you see, to prevent them from being damaged. The blocks were a little more robust, so they had been displayed as is. As stated in the contest rules, we were responsible for providing all display materials, including cases, meaning it would have been easy for her to prepare those empty spares she swapped in. Mr. Frost's room contained quite a few other flavoured iceworks in progress. I figured if I melted them down somehow, the resulting puddle would look like it came from the sculptures. And that is how the sculptures from 18 years ago came to be in the Winter Wing today. I have to say, Mr. Edgeworth, that's quite the confession. Indeed, and I think she offered it so willingly because she knows there's nothing we can do with it. There's a little bit of an inconsistency here. So, these sculptures have been kept in a freezer in this place for 18 years. A place that she actually lost and was kicked out of. And presumably, we don't know yet, there was a dead body in that freezer too, maybe. For 18 years, and no one checked? No one had a look around going, oh yeah, we should probably defrost this if we're like, no one's actually living here. You know, defrosting a fridge is required. That's all I have to tell you. However, despite everything I've shared, you can't charge me with anything now, can you? What? How do you figure that? Oh my! I would have thought you might know at least this much, given we're at a crime scene. I suggest you memorize the various statutes of limitations outlined in this book. Statutes for dummies? Statutes of what? Statutes of Limitations book, Data. That's not what it's titled. Jot it down to my organizer. I should check it out. Simply put, Kay, well, Edgeworth's about to tell us, but let's read it ourselves. Theft, 7 years from the date of the crime. Separate timeframes apply with regards to claims for damages, etc. Murder is 15 years from the date of the crime. The statute is suspended should the suspect flee to a foreign country. The statute is suspended from the time of any accomplice's indictment to the end of their trial. Oh, the second bit here. To the end of their trial. Indictment. Okay, so that's covered. Just wondering if there's a way around that. Simply put, Kay, prosecutors only have a certain amount of time within which they can put a suspect on trial for a given crime. Let's take a closer look, shall we? Oh, I just did. Sorry. So it's different for every crime. Murder, 15 years. Theft, 7 years. Ah! Yes, Miss Bound stole the ice sculptures 18 years ago, so it was too late to have her arrested for that crime. I don't believe it. Theft is a serious matter, especially when it involves the removal of evidence from a crime scene. However, as you yourself just pointed out, Miss Bound could no longer be prosecuted for her crime. Rendering your revelation rather pointless, wouldn't you say, Mr. Edgeworth?
Objection!
I wouldn't be so sure about that. After all, At this point, I'm searching for the truth. You see, the theft of the ice sculptures isn't my principal interest here. I find the body that reappeared 18 years after the theft to be of considerably more interest. Are you suggesting that I also hid Mr. Frost's body? I am indeed. But how do you keep a body hidden for 18 years without anybody finding it? That's the real question. By hiding it in a very unusual way. Oh, now this is interesting. Are you telling me that you know where the body has been for all this time, Mr. Edgeworth? It's not such a big leap if you think about what Miss Bound has told us already. Let's just say it wasn't just flavored ice that she removed from Mr. Frost's room back then. Very well, if you are confident in this claim, let us put it to the test. Tell me, Mr. Edgeworth, where exactly was Mr. Frost's body hidden? Well, it was in there? It was just in there? It's in that room? Yes? We got blood mixed in, etc. Water running down. I just want to say that room. I guess it's this?
Take that!
Photograph of Mr. Frost's works. And of the victim's body, Your Honor. You will have to forgive me, but I don't see what you mean. Where exactly in this photograph is Mr. Frost's body? The victim's body is hiding right here. Well, I'm so surprised it is what I thought it would be. But how did you get it in there?
Take that!
The Gemini sculpture. Yes, it may look like a sculpture at first glance, but it is in fact Mr. Frost's corpse. What? Surely you can't be serious. Well, it was frozen. You gotta expect that much. I don't see anything in the photograph to support such a wild claim.
Objection!
That's because a certain piece of evidence was used to hide the body in plain sight. And what piece of evidence might that be? The court demands that you present what was used to conceal the body. It was this, wasn't it? Because it was found, rediscovered floating in the fountain.
Take that!
One of the cloths from in the autumn wing. Yes, when it's made to glow in just the right way, it's so visually convincing you might mistake it for ice. Isn't that right, Miss Scone? Oh yes, dear, but you can make it look like just about anything, really. Even blazing fire. And the right shade of blue would make it look like ice, yes. Exactly like it, in fact.
Overruled.
Is it not the case that a certain special device is needed to generate these colors, though?
Objection!
If you would care to take another look at the photograph of the winter wing, Your Honor. You'll notice there is a small box connected to the bottom of the Gemini display case. That's one of the very light-emitting devices in question. Detective Gumshoe even confirmed his presence. In fact, this particular device went missing 18 years ago. Back then, it was no doubt firmly connected to the cloth inside the display case, which means Miss Bound had no choice but to take it with her when she removed the sculpture. So you see, this cloth and the light-emitting device were being used to create the illusion that Mr. Frost's body was in fact a statue carved from ice. That's some crazy cool stealth technology cloth. No! This can't be! Wait, so you're telling me that when we took that photo of us in the winter wing, yes, we were standing right in front of the body. But the body and the cloth were both recovered from the fountain. Why were they found there if the body was supposed to be in the winter wing disguised as a sculpture?
Objection!
Because there would have been no mystery as to how the body had been hidden if we had found it as is. Or the point how it could stay in a freezer for 18 years and not be checked a bit more thoroughly. It was just like lying out in the open. Of course, it had to be within the blooming statue itself and looking very statuesque. Miss Bound needed to remove Mr. Frost from the winter wing in order to throw us off the scent.
Overruled.
Ridiculous. I don't recall her sneaking around behind our backs to throw a body in the fountain. No, and she didn't need to, because she had another method at her disposal. Her trusty lift cart, the same cart that had proved so useful in executing her original theft. It was slightly damp as well. Ah! I believe she wheeled the body into one of the other wings and floated it down the stream to the fountain. The frozen body, being quite solid, probably got stuck somewhere along the way, which is why only the cloth appeared at first. The cloth Miss Scone discovered. Man, body wedged in, no flooding? And then the body followed afterwards once it had thawed enough. It's an ingenious theory, Mr. Edgeworth. But can you prove that it was me? What if it got stuck in a way like its legs were just jamming out the end? Or like the body got caught somehow and is just flopping about. It seems a little unfair to expect me to accept your accusations without proof, don't you think? What about an eyewitness? Do you think somebody might have spotted her when she was moving the body? Yeah. As a matter of fact, I do. And the contradiction in the piece of evidence I was provided will shed light on exactly how Miss Bound moved the body as well. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, do you have any evidence to support your allegation? Of course, I have a piece of very compelling proof right here. Then please present it to the court. What evidence do you have that proves Miss Bound acted as you claim?
Take that!
More drawings? And is that me? Yes, Mr. Butts drew sketches of people as they passed through the fountain room. But what I'm interested in is the cart we can see here. Miss Bound's serving cart? What about it? You don't see it. She's using the same trick she used 18 years ago. Ergo, we know that Miss Bound was busy moving Mr. Frost's body when this picture was being drawn. What? If I may, I don't see Mr. Frost's body anywhere in that sketch. All I see is a picture of me delivering chocolates to everyone. Really? Then allow me to direct your attention to the color of the tablecloth, Miss Bound. I'd originally thought that Mr. Butts had made an error, but he's assured me that couldn't possibly be the case. This tablecloth appears to be light blue. Yes, a shade of tablecloth that Miss Bound doesn't seem to own. The cloth only appears to be light blue due to the body hiding just underneath. What? But the shape of the cart is perfectly rectangular, just as one would expect. Surely it would be immediately obvious if the tablecloth was being draped directly over the body.
Objection!
Not if the body had been placed inside one of the hollow Zodiac blocks in the winter wing. Place one of those on the lift cart and it'd easily pass muster as a regular serving cart, wouldn't you agree? Goddess of justice! Miss Bound, surely now you must admit that it was you who moved the body, just as you did 18 years ago. I didn't expect you to deduce all that from a single simple sketch. But that sketch alone isn't really enough to prove your theory, is it? You needn't worry on that front. My case doesn't rest solely on Mr. Butts' artwork. Once you had disposed of the body, your serving cart became a simple lift cart once more, which is exactly what we discovered here in the fountain room. And without a serving cart, you had to find some place to put your chocolates. My chocolates? The ones I was handing out? As we saw in the sketch, you had originally placed them on top of the cart, but the chocolates you gave us came from your pockets. Oh yeah, mine was half melted. It was still super sweet and tasty though. Why did you suddenly feel the need to put the chocolates in your pocket, Miss Bound? It was because you no longer had a serving cart to put them on. That's why. Ah! One moment, please. You have explained what Miss Bound did with the chocolates in the lift cart. But what about the tablecloth? Where did it go? Indeed. If stashing the chocolates in her pocket was the only solution she could think of, I doubt Miss Bound had the time to dispose of an entire tablecloth. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, do you have an answer for me? Miss Bound didn't hide or dispose of the tablecloth, Your Honor. In fact, it's right here in front of us. Perhaps you would care to enlighten us. Where exactly is the tablecloth Miss Bound used to hide the body? In the fountain? Not in this room? On Miss Bound's person? Well, there's nothing currently in the fountain. If it's not in this room, then that's a bit rubbish for us. So I guess it's got to be on Miss Bound's person? Trying to think what she's wearing now. Is she wearing a tablecloth? Have I just been unobservant about what she's kitted out in? Well, I'll just assume you've got it in the pocket as well. It's a really big pocket, maybe. Oh, they're melted a bit, so the pocket would be hot. So is it the fact that she's got all of the chocolates just bundled up in the tablecloth in her pocket? The tablecloth's a bit big, though, which would explain the melting. Miss Bound has a tablecloth on her person, and in plain view, in fact. It's just what you're wearing around your waist. There we go. Sure. In plain view? No. Surely you don't mean... Miss Bound. It's the cloth around your waist, isn't it? Well, that's a shock. She's been wearing one piece of evidence the entire time. And I think we've got her nailed down to rights here. However, you've got to imagine that she may have done the poisoning. But did she do the murder all that time back? That's the real case we're after here. This looks more like a revenge or a trying to reveal what really took place. A bid to get Tangaroa out. So with that said and with that done, I think we'll leave another episode to end here for Ace Investigations 2 Prosecutors Gambit. Join me next time as we watch the breakdown, or you watch the truth start to unfold. I'll see you guys then for more. Until then, I say, bye-bye.